And yeah, that's fine. I apologize. Normally we have microphones.
That is fine.
Yeah, so if you just introduce yourself, let us know who you represent. If you're not the applicant, and speak in a loud voice, we'd
Yes,
appreciate it.
sure.
These mics will pick up.
My name is Saleh Foda with Crystal Premier Architect, who are presenting the tenant of 10 South Broadway for the sign application. We are here to follow on the board's recommendation from the last meeting. We changed the materials and the characteristic of the sign to fit what aligns with the board was recommending. And basically, it's going to be a white background, which is the symbol white, Benjamin Moore symbol white. Was not indicated there, but at the end of our discussion, I will give you the number of the white color. And the board is basically now it's high density urethane inside wood with raised lettering and raised border. Lettering and border are in what vehicle color. Are in purple color, the lettering on the border are in purple color. The blood sign green, the background is symbol white, Benjamin Moore. MC 117.
What is it?
O for orange, C for cat, dash 117, Benjamin Moore, symbol white. On top of the sign, we have 4 wall-mounted pictures as submitted, are in bronze color. So I believe this is improvement compared to the surrounding signs as far as the Chinese restaurant or the pizza place, which they are in white.
But the lighting is very similar on that street.
Yes.
As far as the
Yes.
wall sconces are concerned.
Yes.
My only concern right now, having made the changes pretty much that we requested, is the wall-mounted lights can use a wattage up to 200.
Oh, yeah, this is up to the board. We could reduce it down.
Yeah, I would be uncomfortable with 800 watts
Yes,
on that
yes,
little
of course,
slide.
yes. This is, we are aware of that because of the specs calls for 200.
Right.
But we're willing to reduce it down to 50 each.
That would work for me.
Yeah. I also think the sign is very large. So how many feet is that?
It's 120 inches, 10 feet.
What? Yes, isn't it?
10 feet, the previous,
It's below, but it's below the what they're allowed.
What, 25%?
Yes.
it's less, one less, yes. And the previous sign for the dry cleaner, I submitted that application a while ago. It was 144 inches, it was approved.
It was 12.
So this one is less by 2 feet away.
It's a big sign. And I also, just what struck me is the 4 lights with that size sign too. It just seemed
Again,
massive
we
for
are
that
more
space.
flexible, could reduce it to 3. That point was raised in the discussion.
Right, right.
Then the tenant was pushing, then what we are flexible could reduce it to 3 pictures with 52.
Yeah, I think it will look better, and I don't know how you feel, but I feel like it's a lot of sign and a lot of lighting for that storefront. And then I take it, I noticed when I drove by that she has the
Gender, so.
temporary, so that will come
Yeah,
off.
well, this is coming up. It's just for now.
Right.
Until we get the application.
And out of
Until the
curiosity,
sign is up.
I gotcha. And out of curiosity, I noticed that on these other examples, some of these awnings, is it just the colors off that some of them are navy? Is purple the sign
Yeah,
color?
that's their average English thing they keep using.
Uh-huh.
And when I spoke to them, they always resistant to any major changes on. For example, I recommended to use a brown background with some kind of goldish engraving letters, but I resisted that.
Okay. So this purple is what they want?
Yes, that's their corporate franchise color. But again, we're flexible with the number of pictures and the wattage.
It seems so high contrast
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah,
You know, the
purple and a white, yeah.
Yeah, if it was just the purple letters, maybe it would work as
Mhm.
a building, but it's really kind of shocking.
It's
But
really,
again, I looked into that, and when I went there, I've seen two white signs on the pizza place and the Chinese restaurants, which is basically white is a contrast to the red brick building. So this is not so bad as far as the color of the brick is not dark. So the white goes with the orangey thing, a little less in contrast than the Chinese or the pizza places contrast between the white and the red brick.
but their signs are much smaller, they're not 10 feet long. This sign is much bigger than those other two signs. That's why, what concerns me is exactly that, is that it's the size, and then you take that purple against that white, and I get it, she wants to advertise and she wants to get attention, but I'm concerned about the look of that.
I'm not so sure the pizza sign is much smaller than that.
Yeah, it's not. It's and the other thing is the previous sign was larger by 2 feet, so not really basically below what it was there.
The only thing that I would say about the size of the sign is if you look to the left, you have an awning that's going to hide it as you're coming north, and you have the you know the tavern sign as you're coming south. So as big as it is,
Yeah,
it's still going to be
that
hard.
can be
It's still going to be a little hard to see.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I'm also comforted by the fact there's nobody across the street looking at it. If there was a residential building staring at that, I
Yeah,
would
but
be
it's-
concerned
but
about
it's
glare
actually
and lighting, but
close,
that's
yes.
not the case here.
but the fixtures were reduced to 3 fixtures.
Right, I do think the three will make a difference.
And only 50 watts each, which
And
is
50, right.
So that'll make it 50, 75 in case if she,
down to 3. I don't have a problem with 75,
yeah, I
but
think down to 3,
still-
75 would be a good outcome.
it's still below 50 at 4.
Yes.
So.
What do you think?
I don't think it looks good. I mean, but I don't know what rules we have to apply to this. I mean, part of the problem is this color of the building, and then it's just,
They can come and
the
paint the building
white just
anytime.
really makes it pop in the wrong direction, you know? It's-
Do we, where's that example of the other franchises? Yeah, this is- I mean, they used to, that's illuminated.
Yeah,
They
if
used-
it wasn't illuminated, you know, I like the letters. That's, I mean, that's less
I know, the blue.
obtrusive as this.
I don't know whether we want to give them different direction again, after we gave them direction last week.
Yeah, unfortunately, I wasn't here for that one.
The last week it was the letters attached to the building, which we haven't
No, it was the illuminated letters.
illuminated letters attached to the building, which that's come back to the wooden sign. And then to the sign that we didn't anticipate it
But
coming back.
the
to the
lettering,
white back.
the lettering themselves are not so high, only 9 inches, the lower line, 9 inches above it, so small, so it's not really as large as we think. It's considered 9 inches from far. It's,
I don't think you did
it's about
yourself,
the
you didn't do
width.
yourself any justice with that, because that
Yeah,
looks way
right,
bigger.
yeah, that-
It looks
yeah.
way bigger than 9 inches, or even 11 inches on the tees.
That image came from their headquarters out in Indiana, so I really have no control over that. I'm just basically trying to go through the guidelines here.
Do we know what the frontage of the store is?
The furniture,
The frontage. Do you have a calculation on the drawings?
the furniture.
The frontage.
Frontage.
Oh, the frontage, I'm sorry. Oh, yes, there's calculation. Yeah, it's way
Looks like
below,
it's 13.
it's way below,
No, I'm not worried about that. I'm just worried about the look, you know, what we're looking at, and whether in fact that does represent a 10-foot sign.
yeah, it's a 22.5 square feet.
14 and a half wide. 12 feet high.
The image one.
I think they did what we asked them to do. It's nowhere near as bad as it was.
That's what it was before. Illuminated letters on the bottom.
Right.
That was too strip mallish.
Yes. The wood sign is an improvement, it's the white that's throwing me.
We can go with linen white. Linen white is more orangey, which is less contrast of white. And that would help the contrast difference. So you can go with Benjamin Moore linen white, which is kind of an off-white, kind of orangey white, instead of that bright, small, bleak white.
No, no, I think.
What is the rule of the lighting? The lighting stays
The
on
sign is gonna run.
24/7 or how's it?
Yeah. So it was weird.
I did not go to that.
What's that?
What, the lighting, it stays on 24/7 or?
Just sort of right.
That particular lighting can. Lighting in the windows has to be off at 9. That's why I'm concerned about how, what the wattage is, almost 3 lights.
Yeah, because this is going to be the brightest thing on Broadway.
No,
Reflect
No.
all
right
the
next,
light.
right next to the tavern sign, I don't think so.
No, I just tabbed in some of the over.
Oh, the one that's in the picture here?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
We will be
but
reducing
you gotta remember,
pictures.
that's, you're looking at it this way, when you're looking at it going north or south. Actually, this is probably more than a 2-week-old or 3-week-old main drawing, because half the tavern sign's out, meaning it says TAV. So, as we speak.
So that's what it's-
But be that as it may,
it's gonna
the
run.
lights in the bar are far greater
With
than
the lights over it.
what this is
Right?
gonna be.
Yeah,
Do you think toning it down to linen white?
that would help.
I think it would.
Yeah, linen white is kind of orange.
I use linen white all the time.
Yes.
To help pull back into the,
The yellow.
Yellowish.
But you gotta remember, he could,
You
I'm
got
not,
light yellow?
yeah, I'm not good with colors.
they can
but,
come and paint it,
I know.
at any time anyway, so.
But did they repaint this? Because it looks, is that the same?
No, they did paint this.
They did paint it?
Yeah, they did paint it recently.
Well,
That's not all.
once they took the old sign down, obviously it required it.
Okay, so if we can tone down the white to linen white, change the 4 lights to 3, and dim the wattage, I think
Yes, that's what we're doing.
that's where we're at.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the application as amended with 3 lights versus 4, 50 to 75 watt each on the 3 lights, and changing the background color on the sign from white to linen white?
So,
Second?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
aye.
Okay.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
patience, I appreciate your,
Yes, make it work.
thank you.
So I'll change
Sure.
the main drawings, so in a couple of days you'll be able to pick up the
Of
application.
course, yes.
All right.
Thank you so
You want
much.
these back or?
Good luck to your client.
Okay, at this point, we have another continuation. However, I have no new materials, so I won't hear the case today, but it was ARB 1818, 125 North Broadway, solar panels. Is there anybody here to speak to that?
Yes, sir.
Once again, like I said, we will not vote on anything tonight, but we will hear if you have some new materials or stuff like that to bring forward, that'd be great, but the building department didn't give me anything new to talk about, so.
First of all, I own the place
Mhm.
and my wife. And,
What is your name, sir?
My name is Shinko, S-I-N-K-O,
Okay,
Joseph,
thank you.
and Agnes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, what did you want to say?
Okay. We were very interested about because of the electricity. And we were interested about that it is that they're coming in with the solar panels. And I hope that is we can talk some sense and we can put some things together. And I called up this company, they came out and they were telling me, the company telling me that it is, we cannot go out and we cannot do anything for you because your house is in shade. And I said, why don't you just come out and take a look at my house and survey it, and then you understand, because we just probably arguing without
I agree.
seeing the house.
Makes sense.
Okay?
Mhm.
Survey the house. So he came out, and I have the pictures here because they didn't send it on this. This is I get it from
Okay.
the apartment.
Thank you.
This is I get it from the company. So the survey come and he checks it out, and then he said that, well, we're not going to give you 100% because this roof is too small, and next door is the garage, and the garage is shaded by the house and the tree. I said, well, you can go down and land because I have almost 3/4 acres. He said, no, we don't want structures. Okay, so I didn't want to put structures in. We had to go on the house.
Okay.
And I said, okay, so you want a house, you want a house. Well, then we compromise. Okay? And then he drew the pictures, and then he's showing that is the front facing the Broadway. You cannot use the full because of the fire department. And I said, oh, great. We have to cut back on that. We have to cut. Rather, that is, we have to cut.
Right.
There's nothing you can do about that. And, okay, so I think that's what you have already said. I said, okay. So he walked away, and they said, well, they're going to send me a proposal. I said, well, that's beautiful. I said, but you do me a one favor when you're doing the drawings and the wirings, for these things. And I would like to have a generator, emergency generator, plug-in or whatever connections, because these things is how it works. When I'm not using electricity, it pumps it back into the system, and Connection accepts them, and then I can take it out nighttime, whatever it is. I really not too much in the two details. But it's okay, it's acceptable. Okay? I have to accept this, and I have to pay for these monthly payments for the electricity for them and whatever I needed to be paid out for Connection, because the switching back and forth. So I said, fine, but you have to give me the connections for emergency, because just to say it is I have all these beautiful things, and what happens when there's a storm comes, nighttime, and then I have nothing.
Right.
I said, okay, so they're going to do that. I didn't see them on the drawings.
There's nothing, we know nothing about a generator. I did speak to the building department, it says that you want to have a generator included.
Right.
That's why, when it comes to this application, I can't go any further than this until we see it and get a chance to look at it and.
Okay, just, let me just say it, okay? So I called them up, these people, finally I told them, okay? And I said, I'm missing a part of this drawing because I cannot see my connections. She said, well, we gonna fix it for you because apparently they don't like my panel and they don't like my wire. And my wire is 100 years old, so it's fraying, and that is not a part of the.
Right.
I said, okay, so I mean, for how
Did they say that they can do the generator?
And then I said, okay, you do this panel and the wires. So, and I said, but I need the connections. And I wanted to have the drawing to see that it is what you gonna do for my money,
Right.
all right?
Mhm.
Well, no, not yet. I said, okay. I went out and then I asked the gentleman that is doing generators. I called him to my house, he came out, and he told me that he is gonna work on the generator. And I said, well, how are you gonna do this? I said, well, we have to have a gas coming out, which is very simple because I have a big lot, and downstairs, I have hot water heater, gas line. There's not much of a work to put a gas line to this generator.
Right.
And then they will plug them into this. He didn't like my wirings because it's not changed, it's
Right.
still there.
Mhm.
And he said that we have to change your wirings. What he's going to do to me is apparently, I don't know what the hell he's going to do, don't ask me please. He said that I have to get the electricians and I have to get the plumber for the gas.
Mhm.
Okay? But I have to get the permits for the electricians and then for the generators. Okay? And then apparently that if it's a stationary,
Oh, I know there's very strict rules when it comes to generators, that I know.
oh no, hey, I don't want to blow up myself. What do you do?
No, of course.
I mean, what's our neighbors?
No, when
And
I
if we
say,
have a plenty
what I'm talking
space-
about is, you gotta go plumbing, you gotta go with a plumbing engineer, you gotta go with an electrical engineer, then you have to get it to the building department, they have to, it's very complicated,
No, it's not complicated. It's just that
it's time consuming.
It's just that they're done, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the electricians, he can draw their drawings, I mean, and show that it's, what the hell are you doing?
Right,
And then, I mean, there's gonna be a new line in, and a new panel,
right.
so that it is no pH. And the plumbing system, it's just 50 feet, 50 feet gas line. I mean, the white board is gonna be happy, is not gonna be happy that we're using this gas. Right?
Yep.
I have no problems with using the oil either. I have, I have tanks, 300-gallon tanks, oil tanks. I mean, I have no problems with it either.
So how can we help you? So today you're here?
I'm here because I went to the building inspector and I said, what is the problem? Why I am not having the panels delivering on my lawn and put them up on my roof? Okay? So he was telling me about that. I don't know, I should tell you this. I don't want to troubles, right? I'm not troubles, I don't want to just shelf the situations.
Right.
He said, well, he looked at the drawings, and you cannot put on the front because of the shade.
That's really not the reason
No.
we don't want you to put it on the
No,
front. Go ahead.
That's the reason he told me,
That's
okay?
what he told you.
Okay? So I said, what the heck is talking about? I said, what is wrong with you? What do you mean I did it? My tree went out, the horse chestnut tree, 10 years ago, because it was rotting away.
Right.
Now you can like it, what the hell ever you want to do with it. It's rotting away, you have to take it out.
Right.
Otherwise it's gonna go. Right?
Part of the reason, I don't know whether you spoke to your solar guy when he came back after he met with us here, but
Yeah.
most of the reason is the fact that, and this is even more complicated, your house is in what they call the Broadway corridor. You're coming down Broadway, your house is right on Broadway.
It's fortunately, it's 200 years.
Right.
And before everybody.
Right, exactly right. But there's rules in town to keep everything looking, like it does now. They don't want anything to change on the front. Which we told him, we looked at the drawings, we said, look, the ones that are on the back of the roof,
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
What we said to him is the ones that are on the front, if you move them over to the back on the garage, on the, that side of the garage, where it will get sun, then you should be okay.
The problem is that it is no place.
Well,
It
from
is
what we
a
saw,
shade. I'm seriously, if you come out and see it, I'm not trying to be funny.
right, no.
Okay? It is
We,
shady.
the last we looked at it was, there was no leaves on the trees, but,
Oh,
But-
we can do that.
Right.
And that huge, you don't touch that because my wife, you know, that is the most beautiful, what you call that is, maple.
Maple.
Yeah, the 3 maples. I mean, that is really, and now, instead of horse chestnut, you know, in the front of horse chestnut, we have a tree is coming up. That is, we planted a tree. So, trust me, when the tree is, I mean, it's growing already beautiful, and when, it's what you said about 3 more years, you're not even gonna see the roof.
But the
The
problem,
thing is that is.
I do,
One
I,
second.
sure.
The thing is that is, okay? First of all, that is, the panels are black, okay? What you see here is maybe yellow, or did you show yellow? It is just for the highlights.
We know that.
No, I'm just, so that if, you know we to see that empty, okay? First of all, and second is the people right in front of my house, that's the police. No joke, that's the police. They won't stop in front of my house. They say people come around the corner, 60 miles an hour. Okay? Now don't ask me how I'm gonna get out from my house. We lived there for a long time, you know. My wife, she was born in the house, we probably know her. She was in the director in the library, Agnes.
Sure.
Yeah. So we survived somehow. It is, I just for some sense, probably just, it is very hard to me to see it, let's put it that way.
I hear you. So can we,
It's very hard to see me, and then we try to do something nice, with honest. And but it's just, otherwise it's not working. We try to figure it out, you know, the house, and then I have a little pad in the back. So that we can put up structure or something that is, and then put the panels up there, you know, like that.
That's fine because there's nobody behind you that would care. You know what I'm
See,
saying?
the problem is, another big problem is, it is almost like a laughing matter. Okay?
It's not a laughing matter.
All myself, no,
It's not a laughing matter to the village board, I can tell you that much.
no.
They're very protective of the Groveland corridor.
Well, I'm glad.
Sure, you benefit from that.
I'm glad that it is that you in my investment.
Right.
Okay? No, don't you ever say that, please. First of all, the lady next to me is dead. Listen. Okay? Evans. She passed away. Her house is practically gone. Okay? I mean, fortunately, I don't know who that is going to buy that it is, but that is. The roof is leaking, the wall is, and the little girl is over there, just, she paid it away. My heart is breaking, no serious. And that is, everybody is on my, not even conforming that zonings. Okay, so I don't even know what to do with that. The next other side is they're selling the house. Behind us is Telesign. Sunny side
Plus
lane.
it goes down,
Yeah,
too.
sorry sign and Telesign. Okay? I don't even know who would. And in front of me is the
Co-ops.
co-ops, or who I'm going to ask. No, I agree with you, sir. No, don't you ever think less than that it is, I don't care.
No, I didn't say you didn't care. I never said that.
That's the reason, you know, that's the reason I'm here, and I'm very happy to think, and I explain this. Personally, I don't think that you will even notice that stupid things on that, because of the colors and the people's buy and surroundings. You know, at the distance from both sides, I mean, you cannot see nothing from the both sides. It's practically, there's no way you can see it, you know?
right. So Mr. Cinco, we've listened to you. Can we say a few words? And I understand and I do hear what you're saying.
No, I
The-
just,
And I appreciate that you came tonight also to give us a more fuller understanding of what's happening and to take a look at this. We as the chair said, we can't take a vote tonight because we don't have anything before us,
Sure.
but I can tell you where I was coming from. So when your solar panel rep showed up before us, my concerns are that while people driving down Broadway, you may say, can't see the solar panels, the folks living in the co-op across the street most certainly can. And front-facing solar panels are considered concerns both for reflection with the light and glare, and also you often may think that those blend in with the roof. They don't blend in with the roof in all cases. So let me just finish because I listened to you. I just want you to hear what I have to say.
I'm sure.
And so we had asked your solar panel rep to go back and take a look and see if you can't get the same amount of energy from the back and in other ways. And we're waiting to hear from your solar panel rep to come back to demonstrate to us if that in fact can be done. We've had no other application. So as far as we know, there's still another solution to get the same amount of energy that he had drawn with this design. This design does not work for the village, and I'm sorry that your house faces Broadway and it faces a co-op, but that's just the fact of that, and we have to figure it out. But I think your solar panel rep could come back to us and figure this problem out, but he hasn't come back yet.
No.
So I would suggest you send him back to us, and he can describe to us why it can't work in another configuration.
Because it's very simple that is very simple that it is. If you look at that map,
Mhm.
if you put your hands in there and the end of the house,
Yep, yep, I know, yep.
go over to the garage.
Yep.
So the sun is that the house is shading.
I know, but there's actual math, but he can do the computation for us. If he can demonstrate to us how much energy he's looking to get with this configuration versus what we're suggesting, we should have that conversation with him, not with you, because he could answer our questions. And right now, nothing has happened on this application since the last time he came in. So I understand the bigger picture, and it was good you came in to tell us, but we still need, if you want to get more energy, not just from the back of the house, we still need the solar panel rep, in my opinion, to come back.
The only thing is that you can do is I can put them on the lane. With the structure.
Yes, and others
That will work.
have done that.
But he's gotta show us that.
It will work.
No, but 1 second. Before we go to other extended situations, okay? We can put them down in the land because it's not used except for grass and cutting grass. And then what happened to the people from Sunnyside Lane?
Well, when you give notice, that was the other problem with your application was that there's a notice requirement. Your neighbors have to be informed when those solar panels are going in, so you have to notify neighbors. So if in fact you want to put the solar panels in the back, we would just wait to see what happens with the neighbors in the back. But this can all be done. We just need your solar panel rep to come back and demonstrate some of these other ideas we've given them. Now, I'd love to talk about this more, but you do have other applicants.
No, I'm sorry,
don't you?
no, I'm finished.
Okay, I just want to make sure that that's,
No.
and I don't know if you have anything else to add, but that's where I was coming from. But I think your solar panel rep should come back and we can talk about other ways to get you the energy that you need. We shouldn't let this application sit. We need him to come back and submit something else. Right now, we've got one idea. There's other ways he can do this.
Oh, it is very difficult because this is, he was out there in a sunny day, and when the sun was rising and setting, and with the machines measuring the plates so that he can put it. So it's not from the thin air.
I know, and we should be able to see that. Do you agree?
All right? No. I'm not trying to be, it was right there with the machines, and then he came up with this, and he didn't give me more. I asked him for more.
We did too.
I
He
asked,
said he'd come back.
I asked him for more, but I'm using 20K.
I know, but maybe this is, there's other solar companies too. Maybe he's not servicing you and giving you what you want, but we've asked for something, and if he wants the job and he wants the business, SunPower has to come back and do another, and come up with another configuration.
I know that this, I had problems with that, because I'm not really the kind of guy that you have to finish it. Start something, you finish it. When I call you, I answer. So I had problems with this. I'm sorry that, and I, first of all, I'm supposed to be here, isn't it? I'm supposed to be here, and I'm supposed to get some papers to saying that, what is the matter? And I'm waiting, and what? No.
I agree.
No, I mean, you can see that, right? And I just, for other reasons, I was in the city hall. I'm sorry to hold you. I didn't know my but I don't want to be a test, all right?
But I thank you, and that, do you agree?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, and
There is no way that it is, you can think about that it is, put them in a front. Because that's all you, that's what's there.
You said you have the choice of putting them on the property in the back.
Yeah.
If they come back to us with a plan that shows that, and the neighbors have been notified and nobody's complaining,
But I mean, that is behind us, on the other side is Telecom.
Yeah.
And so how
it's
you-
actually still Irvington.
it's still Irvington. Your back property, I mean, I looked on the, if you put them in behind.
Sunnyside Lane?
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
but you're
that's-
not going down to Sunnyside. The way your property is, that whole piece, isn't it Irvington? I
Yeah.
believe, that whole piece of your property. So you still come back to us. If he
This
puts
side
them-
of Sunnyside Lane is Irvington,
Yeah.
that side of Sunnyside Lane is
That's correct,
Tarrytown.
that's my
Right.
That's your
But
lane.
That's right.
Right.
So it should be fine. You're not going to have to go to Terrytown. You just have to come back to us, and he can show us where in the back of your property, where it's very sunny, he can put those, so he can install solar panels. And we can get this done.
All right, I'm sorry.
Thank you,
Thank
though.
you
I
very
appreciate it. I
Thank
just don't
you.
want to take up.
No, please, I mean, I can talk to you tomorrow morning. Or maybe after that.
Come back next meeting.
After that, if you say that it's you, get the hell out of here, do whatever you want.
We're all neighbors. We would never say that.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Okay,
Good-
thank you.
We'll see you next time.
Okay, on to new matters. ARB 18-29, 136, 138 East Sunnyside Lane. It's listed as landscaping, but I believe it's a patio.
Yes, okay.
Can you just put a extension on the back of the house?
Yes.
Go look at it.
Good evening, my name is David Wong, the applicant along with my brother Mochoni. We're proposing to put a 380 square foot patio back rear of our house. And we are using permeable pavers. I believe we submitted pictures of the we're going to use.
You may have, but I'll...
That's the ledge stone permeable, 3-piece design kit.
And then those, in Sahara and Chestnut?
Yeah,
Those
That's
colors?
it. Yeah, it only comes in that color or color.
Okay. Have you've been in front of the planning board?
Yes, planning board, zoning board now.
So everybody, okay, so everybody's weighed in and you're through all those?
Yes.
Thanks, Tom. I believe I got any particular questions. So this is in addition, to like the addition that you put on was here, or is this going under the addition?
It's to the rear of the addition.
Okay, so the addition is,
The addition was just extended as 10 feet.
okay,
So it's already, it's existing right
Okay.
now.
all right. So this is the actual house, the way it sits today. Okay. Questions? No questions? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the application?
So moved.
Second?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're good to go.
Thank you very much. Just an extra copy.
There's an update.
Is
Okay.
this the,
This is more recent.
okay, so you know that, this is gonna go with the copies that I've signed,
Okay.
so you can go to the building department in there, so.
Thanks very much. Thanks for your
Thank you.
patience.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, on to the final application on that, ARB 18-30, 22 South Dutcher Street, addition.
My name is Bill Witt. I'm the architect for this project. I'm here tonight with my client, Elena Elizabeth O'Hara.
Elizabeth and her husband purchased this property almost exactly a year ago, in June of 2017, with the intention of renovating, expanding, and the house is currently a raised ranch, basically built in 1965. Here's some pictures of the existing home for you. Some of the property. So it's set up as a one family above, one family below. We are expanding the footprint and adding about 450 square foot to this house. A small two-story addition in the front, a small two-story addition in the back. And the ultimate goal here is kind of like de-raised ranching. So we've taken the front door, which you notice on a raised ranch is in the middle of the house. We've dropped it down to the first floor since we're creating a single-family home. And really creating more of that village colonial house, which we feel fits in this neighborhood much more important for the neighborhood. But at the same time, giving it some transitional / modern elements. So we're going with the whitewash hardy plank siding. There is some brick on the house that we plan on whitewashing. We're going to introduce a little bit of brick accents to match the existing brick on the chimney. The rest of the exterior materials will be a hardy plank siding. That will be white, hardy trim in white. There will be a lifetime architectural roof shingle on the main portion of the house. And again, this is the main roof that exists currently. And at the front porch, we'd like to introduce a standing seam anodized metal roof, a dark charcoal, which will match the roof on the house and pick up on the tones of the dark
So it's above the doorway you're speaking about, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, just at the covered porch there. So all the windows are being replaced. New garage door will be a Clopay Coachman series. I have some cut sheets and samples of the materials if you're not familiar with any of these, we have to share with you. But as I said, we're adding a 450 square foot, renovating the interior and updating the exterior materials at the same time.
Okay, and can you just jump into how, you started off saying how you think it fits in with the neighborhood and with the block. What elements did you bring in that you think are consistent with the other houses on the
Sure,
block?
the houses on the block, obviously it's a very traditional, the first half of the street. As you get to our house, which is a raised ranch, we have a raised ranch next door to us, and then we have another flat raised ranch that was built behind us. Across the street from her is a brick co-op, right? Not a co-op, it's for your multifamily community. But I would say, the east side of the street, more traditional homes, covered porches, front-facing gables, play on materials, so they're not so flat as this house is. So by introducing the gables, that really ties us back into some of the houses on the street. By introducing a covered porch, which my clients desperately wanted, I think is a nice element, and a lot of the older homes do have that aspect as well. In addition to the changes here, you'll notice in the pictures that the house currently has a 4-foot high chain link fence around the property we're going to be taking down. There's some white vinyl fencing on the side we're going to be taking down. We'd like to replace that with a black.
We need to talk about that because I see fencing materials here, and I don't see anything on the drawing as to where they're going.
Oh, sure.
We can get to that before we end, but. So at no point is the height of the roof increasing anywhere along the.
The main roof, the back addition, breaks the plane of the existing ridge by about 18 inches.
Okay.
This is the existing roof of the house as it exists now. The front addition at its furthest point is 5 feet in front of the main house.
But that addition is only up to the door, up to the front.
Correct. There is the addition. And on the back, it's a little bit wider. We're creating master bedrooms, master bathrooms, more space in the back, fitting within the buildable envelope. The other houses on the street, as you may know, are right down the property line. These houses are all set back 30 to 35 feet.
I did notice we're set back quite a bit compared to the other homes, so 5 feet, moving up 5 feet, in my opinion, is not a big deal. I'm just, what are you moving out in the back?
The back is the master bedroom. So here's the existing plane of the house. The master bath and master walk-in closet sticks on the back. Again, I think the back addition, just double check that for us, is 6-foot addition to the back of the house.
Replacing like an existing.
Yeah, there's a covered deck in the back of the house.
Right.
You'll see it.
I know you haven't gone, obviously this has been through planning board.
Planning board and zoning board, we had an issue with the FAR on
I
the
was gonna ask that question, I think you did.
So this just gives you a sense on how the house is positioned. This house is much closer, across the street, obviously much closer. You can see that these are some of the traditional houses on the street, even though they're multifamily or three-family. You've got the brick multifamily unit over here, and a couple of the newer houses over there. As we get from here back, more traditional style. And you'll notice that all of these houses, with the exception of one, have these double doors.
Did you have, in those, the gables there, what is that, the triangle, is that just flat?
That's a flat piece of hardy or MDO side with some trim, just to break up the horizontal lines.
Did you consider like tying into the other houses with the scalloped shakes?
No, because we're trying to create that transitional house, so we're trying to pick up on some of the elements of the more traditional home, but at the same time create more of this modern aesthetic, without being so modern where it's going to stick out.
Look, I'll tell you what I think so far. This house is in the historic district, and while it's really not a contributing structure because it's a new ranch, you have some beautiful homes, as you've noted, on South Dutcher, certainly on North Dutcher, but on South Dutcher that are, mid-19th century original contributing buildings that are part of the historic district, and they have all of the elements that we look for, whether they're one-over-one windows, front porches, the gable, the shutters, and yes, there's some colorful additions here and there, but those colors still don't distract from the fact that they try to work with the original form and structure that was unique to this village, in my opinion. I recognize that there's some houses on the block that, unfortunately, during the last 100 years, we lost some of those houses, and they put up some very simple, ranches. But that's not obviously what's unique to the village, nor is that something that the village is hoping, to continue. So what you've attempted to do here, it is a beautiful house, but you're straddling two different types of houses on the block, and yet, like you said, trying to form something unique that crosses over between the two of them. In my opinion, it's not in keeping with the historic character of the neighborhood. It's not in keeping with historic houses on the street. You created something that's neither one or the other, and as a result, because you're adding 400 square feet of mass, in my opinion, you're creating something that is not in keeping with that block, and I think it's really going to jump out and stick out, and I'm not 100% comfortable with what you're proposing. I'm struggling with the design because I don't think with the sizes of the houses up and down the street. When I drove up and down the street today, just to go over it again, I took note of how many houses on the street and across the street in terms of the size of those houses and the features that they have that are completely different with what you've designed. And
I appreciate that, and I think that the transitional style in your house is actually the perfect fit for
if
this.
you're adding metal over the porch, there's no metal on the street. You've got windows that are not one over one. You say there's a front porch, but those front porches are nothing along the lines of this. You've got brick on the bottom. None of these houses have. Well, that's not true. This one does have brick on the bottom, but you've got painted brick. This one has natural brick. And there has been an attempt in this village to create a historic district, to draft the guide. Did you see the design guide? Okay. So you know that years of work have gone into that, and I'm sure you looked at that design guide before you designed this house. So I'm struggling with how you came up with this design and keeping those ideas in the design guide.
Well, I think as I explained earlier, that's exactly what we tried to do. It is indeed these front-facing gables that don't exist on this house, don't exist on the other house. It is indeed the covered porches. It is the brick accents. But again, we're not trying to create a historic house here. We're trying to create a house that will live in harmony in the neighborhood that has so many different architectural styles blending at the intersection. This house really is the jumping off point. You go from very old traditional houses, many in a state of disrepair, with vinyl siding, aluminum siding, rickety porches, to some 1960s raised ranches. We feel, myself and my clients, feel that this is actually the perfect way of addressing this house. We don't want it to be just a raised ranch with an addition on it. We didn't want to force it to be something that it's not. This house will never be that 25-foot narrow village colonial with a covered porch that's built on the street line because of the setback requirement. because it's set back so far, it's an opportunity to do something that's going to transition. I think I even showed you the site. It's almost like you're entering a different world when you get past these houses. They're built on the sidewalk. As you get back here, this house, you can't even see this house until you're in front of it. And as you're in front of it, all you're looking at is the other raised ranches that are next to it and the brick multifamily house, which is a complete flat brick facade across the street.
You know, but I always hate to use the worst example of the house that's not in keeping with the historic district as an example of why another house that is being designed is far superior. I really appreciate what you're saying is that there was never the intention in this village to make all of these houses cookie cutter and look the same. That the idea should be that you take what is unique to Irvington and then you complement it and reinterpret it and create something. I'm just not sure about that.
There are several examples of houses in Irvington that
do.
point out that have metal standing seam roofs. So we're clearly not inventing something new here.
Just prove one on Main Street.
There's plenty of examples of homes in Irvington that have the dark casement windows, and I think it's a very nice juxtaposition in this neighborhood. To your point, which I agree with everything that you say, I think the only thing that I disagree with, I feel like this house is designed specifically to be that transitional house in this neighborhood. Never meant to be a 19th century village home, but it's a 21st century home. It's a 21st century home that does pay homage to what's happening in the rest of the village, especially in this area.
And I'm not taking away from this. The design is beautiful. It's just that you've added 400 square feet on a street with these types of houses. That is a lot of house
I
for
understand.
Dutcher.
I'm actually adding 120 square foot to the front of this house. The majority of the addition is in the back of the house. All the houses that are in the back of this house are these modern 1960s, 1970s homes that you may know were all developed at the same time. I believe it was an estate that was sold off, and many of these houses in the 60s were put up with just flat boxes. And we really tried our best. I mean, we could have made this thing 5 foot bigger the whole length of the house. That was never our intention. Our intention was to do something that would live in harmony with the neighborhood.
No,
Because we do appreciate
The more ranches we do what you're doing, I know I appreciate it. I really do, and this is going to do great things for Dutcher. I mean, this is what we've been waiting for. I'm going to give you a chance to jump.
I understand.
Tell me what you.
Like the color on it. I'm sorry.
It is, and it's kind of thrown me a little, and but.
It is architecture. I mean, we're not copying something, we're not trying to be something we're not. At the same time, like I said, we are paying homage to what exists.
Well, I kind of agree, it doesn't look like a village home from one of the side streets here. I don't know what it is about the front elevation, it seems like there's a lot of mass poking out. I mean, this is the type of house that when you place it up the hill in the other neighborhoods, it's great house, great design. But yeah, I kind of agree, it doesn't have that village feel.
I don't know what it is at the second Gables. There's something that is not feeling as much of our village that, and this is an important house that you're doing here. It really is. I mean, it's really gonna, it's important. It's an important piece
On
of
that,
property.
we are on the ground.
Yeah. And I am.
These things don't happen in the back, I'm sure you can appreciate that. There's, a lot of thought,
design
a lot of
considered on the
effort,
inside.
a lot
I
of
know.
time.
And trust me, we've gone through this with 2 other houses.
Not the inside, the outside. We
What is it
really
that-
spent time building the house that we wanted to do.
Look, I'm going to be really honest because I don't want to take up too much of your time, and I know how thoughtful you are because you've been before us before. I can't vote to approve it tonight, okay? And I feel I'm at a, you're at a disadvantage because we unexpectedly are short 2 of our board members that we were counting on being here, and they haven't arrived. So without my vote, you can't get approval because you need to have a majority, and unfortunately, you don't have a 5-person board here.
Actually, if we voted tonight, and he and I voted for it, we would.
You can, okay, then I misspoke. Okay, I was gonna say, but I need you to know that so we don't sit here and kind of.
I appreciate what you're saying, and I agree with you. I just feel like we're actually doing what I think you're trying.
So the only thing I was gonna suggest is, did you want to go through the rest of the presentation? Do you want to show us the materials? So.
Happy to. I mean, anything that you're familiar with. I'm sure you've probably seen lots of Hardy.
Yeah, but just in general, the colors too, in light of.
I have some specific questions as well. When we get a set of drawings, we want the drawings to be, ready for build. And when we see things like number 2, exposure, hardy plank, clapboard, siding and color is indicated or is selected by owner. If it's indicated on this drawing, which it is,
Yes.
that's what we expect.
That's it, yeah.
Um,
Yeah, this is the generic notes for some towns.
I just
This
want,
is for
I just want you to be aware, because whatever
This is
I,
the White House.
whatever I sign, whatever on that drawing is what you're gonna be expected to provide.
And we absolutely intend to.
All right.
So the
Question.
hardy plank, sorry, is
Go
what
ahead.
color?
White. If you look at the materials, yeah.
So that's the hardy plank I'm shooting from
Yep.
there. Charcoal plank roofing. The trim on the house will be hardy trim, which is color matched. The columns, I might not be able to build them out of hardy, so that might be used with AZAC. AZAC, unfortunately, is a slightly different white, so this would be painted to match the hardy side. We're able to get the paint to match that. Garage doors, if you're not familiar with it, it's a clopay door, so it has the carry style effect. This is a bed place up on the roof, which you can see works quite nicely with. Do you want to see the color? What is it, which one is it? That's it, that price.
Also, in the original, or even on the front elevation of the proposed, you're showing two chimneys. What happened to the other chimney?
There's an existing
Right.
fabricated chimney that currently serves two gas-fired boilers. We're replacing the heating system with modern direct vent. Again, it's not a masonry chimney, we're just taking it off. It's only serving the existing mechanical equipment that's all being updated.
Okay.
This chimney is a full-blown chimney servicing the fireplaces. Did I have it shown with the old chimney before?
In the proposed, in the.
Oh, the existing,
In
I'm
the
sorry,
existing,
yeah.
yeah. And I see it, ghosted in that, so I just want to make sure, was it supposed to be there? You're also showing on the rear elevation, these two skylights?
Yes.
Do you have no information?
Two Velux skylights on the window schedule. You might have that on sheet 300. The unit ends,
This sheet, this?
two Velux skylights. They're fixed skylights, they're not good. And they come in a dark bronze finish, so it's roofing that we're doing.
And on your electrical drawing, you're showing wall sconces outside, but I haven't seen any indication as to what it's going to look like.
There's a single light on the back of the house by the rear door.
Right.
There's a light outside, so it's-
In which finish?
it's going to be done in bronze. Yes. The rest of the lighting on the house is hidden inside the covered porch, so that's
Okay.
something nice quote.
Can I put this with the rest of the information? And I think the only other thing for me was explaining the fencing locations and which fences, because you gave us,
Okay, so you can see on the back of the house, it says proposed 5-foot-high cedar split single-faced fence. And then that's going to transition about 6 feet back from the front of the house. See, I have the label here. So this is proposed, and this is going to be the railing that's going to be removed. So this is the vinyl fence that you may have seen if you've driven by the house in some of the existing pictures. That's going to come out and become a black aluminum rail. This will be the 5-foot-high fence. All the existing fences on the front yard of the house are coming down. So the 4-foot-high chain link we're going to remove.
right, so where in here is the new fence?
Try to hide it for you.
And you're gonna have a gate on either side?
We will.
And that gate looks like,
think I gave you both of these. There you go. I just tried to highlight for you.
As long as I have it, I can put it with the
Do you have those as well, you can see?
Which one's that?
Yeah,
Do you have the
they were in the
information
back.
on
Yeah,
these?
I got that.
I also submitted some pictures of the back of the house. You can see the 4-foot high chain link fence. We've got a few neighbors that have sheds that are right on the property line, so we feel like it's just gonna give them a little bit of privacy back there. We're not asking for the full 6-foot height, we just feel 5 foot's the right height to block the neighboring sheds and give the kids some privacy in the rear yard.
You want to speak to us about the brick that's new?
Sure. It's gonna match the running bar on the existing chimney. It's not a tumbled brick, it's really a crisp looking brick. We'll use a Glengarry brick that's not a tumbled, so it won't be antiqued, but it will be whitewashed. It'll just match the existing brick on the house. So same pattern, same gap, same tooling.
And you're breaking it with bluestone?
I'm sorry?
What is the cap on it?
The cap is going to be a brick cap.
Oh, it's,
Yeah. Yeah, the only new stone we're doing is we're gonna cap an existing concrete walkway in the front yard with flex tile.
this says the bluestone cap, that's why they have, number 19?
Yeah, so, I mean, we're gonna cross that out for you. All right. So you found the 3 problems I had. That's the only one, the rest of them were right, I told you through that. You only found one. Oops. And that'll just have a very simple slide, I can't do it to deflect water.
Any questions? Any additional questions?
No, again. No, I mean, the things I struggle with in keeping with the historic character of the neighborhood is your window choice, whether or not 1/1 or 6/1 like the others. The way that the front porch is designed. Is that a side light on the front door?
It is.
Yeah, why you chose a side light, I'm looking at, traditional front doors, and, there just doesn't seem to be enough of the elements of the rest of the neighborhood and the historic district that are brought in here. And I hear you saying that you have, but I'm just looking at some of the choices you've made, and I don't see it. So for me, I think you know where I stand, but
I do, and again, like I said earlier, I do appreciate.
I'm not sure where my colleagues do, so I'll leave it at that.
I just reiterate that my intention here was never to create a gingerbread village colonial, it was to create a transitional house in the neighborhood that would fit in and not be, I don't want to take the wall that exists currently between that nice 20-foot house that's built in 1900s, and then you've got this white raised ranch, a blue raised ranch, a yellow raised ranch. I want to soften that transition, and this house will do that. It's not going to be, we're never going to be putting gingerbread on this house. I'm never going to do this. My client is just not interested in that type of architecture. But we also don't want it to be stark. We don't want it to be a raised ranch. We don't want to just stick an addition on the back of that house and call it a day. We feel like these elements that we're adding, while not being a 19th century village house, it speaks more to it than the existing house.
Well, it certainly speaks more than existing, but I guess the thing is that I'm expecting that whole street to follow what you're doing, and that these little raised ranches are going to be converted into something else. And the problem I'm having is this is the first one.
Well, the one next door to us, I'm sorry, I mean,
You may be transitional, but they're going to have to copy or blend in with yours.
if you look at the existing photos that I submitted, this house here was updated about 4 years ago. Am I right about that, Elizabeth? So this house looked exactly like our house did. And then they added a couple of gables to the roof. They changed the siding, which obviously was an improvement from the way the house looked previously, because that house was the same as our house is now. So that house is still a two-family. In fact, the majority of the homes on the street are multi-family homes.
Yeah, Yeah, I know, and this house was approved before the historic district and before the design guide was published, and frankly, if this house was before us, we'd be saying the exact same thing to them that, you know, that I'm struggling with you, is that this is not in keeping with the historic district, and this is what happens. They put this house in, so now, you know, we're gonna have a whole bunch of different types of houses on the village block, and, you know, the transition from two-family to one-family is awesome, and this is, you know, it's a great house, but I know that's the example, but
Oh, yeah, I mean, there's problems all over.
all over, I know.
Any suggestions on what to do?
Because I know that you're set in your design.
Again, it's not me as the architect saying, with the ego saying this is what we have. This is something that, you know, as a team, we came together and decided this is the architecture that we really want to
I
do.
know.
My clients fell in love with this neighborhood. That's why they bought this house. They wanted to be there, and they saw it as a great opportunity to turn their house around.
I hear you.
And
The
we
prob-
just-
The problem with the way this is done, though, is unfortunately you don't come to ARB earlier, so you don't get our input until after you've already been to the planning board, and that's got nothing to do with you,
No, I
but it's,
appreciate that.
you know, it's unfortunate that we're, you know, what we're charged with is very different with what everybody else is.
And knowing that this house was not a contributing member of the House Historic District, we still felt important that it was a house that was in the street. But we're not creating that 19th century gingerbread Victorian. That was never the intent.
No, nor am I asking you to do that, I understand. I don't know.
Okay, well, I would make a motion to approve the application. Do I have a second? No second. Do I opposed?
I oppose.
Yeah. Two opposed. Well, we can take another shot at it, or we can, you know, let you go to the powers that be and, you know.
So you have two choices. You can come back in 2 weeks, and you will have
It's
a
not
full
2 weeks, it's a month.
month.
We're not meeting on Memorial Day. It's the 11th of June.
Okay, so you can come back in a month, and you'll have a full board, or you can appeal.
Or they can sell the house and ask them to step in and raise it.
What is appeal?
You would appeal to the zoning board.
No,
No.
Town board.
Town board, sorry, no, I'm sorry, you're in the historic district, that's not true.
it doesn't matter. All appeals go to the village board now.
Yeah, I was just
No
gonna
matter
say, yeah, no, because it's the historic district.
No matter what,
No matter
all
what.
appeals go to the village board.
No, outside the historic district? Sure.
The zoning board does not hear any of our appeals anymore.
Yeah, we wrote before the design. And if you had something, a comment that my client could potentially live with as far as changes, I think we might consider it, but short of that, I mean, this really is the house we're trying to create.
Well,
Unfortunately, the other architects that are not here
yeah,
would have offered.
and without the other architects, it's you that offers to us, well, we could do this to address concerns, or we tried this, or we could try that, but you seem very set in your design. I don't want to, obviously, give you any ideas, but that's why we're not suggesting anything.
So you're just aware you're denying it because you don't feel like it's inappropriate for the historic district.
No, what the,
Well, if you file an appeal, I think you have 20 to 30 days to do that. At that point, I would write I forget what they call it, the reasons you were denied, formally the reasons why it was denied. And then that would go back to the village board. Actually, you have to file with the village clerk to go to the village board. At that point, there would be a hearing. They would set up a hearing, probably at their work session, which is the second or third Wednesday of the month. But that won't happen until you have 20 days and I have 30 days to write the reasons, findings of fact, is what it's actually called. So.
And will I be able to get copies of that?
Oh, you get a copy. It would go. I would send it back to the village clerk, and she would disseminate with copies to the village board, you, the applicant, so.
Would that timeline exceed when the next,
Probably.
ARB
It
is
will.
on?
Yeah.
So the alternative is you come back to the next ARB meeting, you can tweak the drawings to see if there's something else you could suggest that you think would be along the lines of what we were discussing, that would be, again, a transitional.
I think if we file a denial, their only recourse is appealing it. If we tell him that we'll continue it until next month, then it's not a final, a fait accompli. It's you get a chance to, but without the input of of anybody here as to what we felt would be an acceptable alternative, it would probably take you 2 months.
So in other words, if you want to walk away saying we didn't take a vote and you just want to continue it to the next meeting, that's okay with us. Or you can have the vote stand to be a denial and then you appeal.
That's probably more for my client.
But it wouldn't be another month after that, it would be 2 weeks after that. It's not
Normally
real
we
time
meet
again, right?
Well, normally
Yeah.
we meet every 2 weeks, so this
Right.
wouldn't be as
But
big
because of Memorial Day,
But then it would only be if we had to come back again,
it's
it'd be
June
2
11th.
weeks after
June
that.
11th is the next meeting.
And I
June 11th, but then if we had to come back a third time.
It would be 2 weeks
it'd
after
2
that.
weeks. So
Yeah.
that's not,
But the likelihood is, if you came back to the ARB meeting one more time, it will be resolved. I can,
After the next meeting.
we are at a disadvantage tonight, that's what I'm trying to say.
because we can't have a dialogue about,
And
There's usually two.
And I
or
really
three
apologize,
architects.
but
Right.
we can't, you were one of the first that we've had, especially obviously on Dutcher, since the publication of the Historic Design Guide, since the creation of the Historic District. So you are the house, and I'm really sorry that our colleagues didn't show up, because this would not be happening otherwise.
And
But I know you've got a timetable, so I don't want to suggest which way you want to go.
we do have a time for it, but we understand this is specifically not in that historic district.
No, it's in the
It
district,
is,
it's
it
not a
is.
contributing
Not a
house.
contributing building, but it is most
Which is why I
definitely
voted for it.
identified. Yeah, it's most definitely identified as a building in the historic district. It's just,
In the district, I'm sorry, I misspoke.
But yeah, but it's just not contributing to the district.
Okay. Now, it's, I don't want to say too much, but if we come back for another meeting, and we have architects who says, we want this to be a Gingerbread colonial from the
They won't.
1920s,
Yeah.
that's not what we want.
they're not
And
going
the
to.
idea that we're going to come back and have this like designed by a committee,
No, I
all the
hear you,
input
I hear
that
you.
as
We're not-
as a-
I agree,
as a
I agree.
professional, well-experienced residential architect, and a homeowner who has clear ideas what they want to do to their
I agree.
house.
I will tell you this, the village board is extremely supportive of the.
They are.
Of the,
As they should be.
yeah.
As
Yeah,
they should be.
they're very supportive of residents' neighbors. I know this sounds weak, but we're trying to be honest with you. They are. And you would be the first one to go.
You won't have time to talk to your client outside.
Yeah, if you want to
Or wait
step
a few
outside and
minutes.
say, if you want a denial, you can have it. If you want a continuation, you can have it. If you want to take 2 minutes to decide, you can.
I haven't filled out the paperwork yet, so I think
Yeah.
it's a matter of.
I mean, yes, let's just,
You want to come back
Figure
and
it out.
refile?
um,
Not refile, just.
All your,
Well, you come back with,
like under here, it'd be a continuation, that's all.
But if I don't see the materials for one reason or another, I hope that's, I don't want to have to look.
we're just giving you an opportunity to be heard by the entire board.
Understood.
and receive feedback.
And yeah,
Right.
and you may have the two architects who say, to be honest with you, it's acceptable, and that's the end of the conversation, or they may say tweak it, but like you said, you're not looking for community by design. I'm just being really honest here, because I feel that you deserve that.
I appreciate the honesty. So you'd like to revisit this next month at the next opportunity?
That's my gut, yeah.
Sure.
So my minutes will show that no decision was made, and that you'll come back with, on June 11th.
Okay.
And then the meeting after that is June, I guess, 25th. So,
And we will bring them up to speed on.
June 25th. Okay,
uh-oh.
it's okay.
You want to help her with the part?
No.
June 11th is the next one.
Yeah.
So it would be the 25th.
All right, so do I need to reach out to the building department to get this on the agenda? Or is that
There.
Well, yes, just call Ed and say, we didn't come to terms, but we didn't, throw the baby out with the bathwater either. Let's get it back on, the next meeting agenda. And he'll ask you for, another filing, another bunches of paper, but
Okay, so just enable copies of the same
No,
things?
I don't think you have to do that.
you know what?
That-
Let Ed
I don't think you do, I would ask.
We still have it, and the other two members will still have it.
Yeah, but they were given copies.
There's no chance that they're like walking in 1 minute, this is
I
done,
would
right?
have
Yeah.
been here, but.
It would have been here
Okay.
before.
Yeah, I figured.
Yeah,
No, I'll keep this copy as well.
All
so.
right, well, thank you for your
that's the direction
consideration.
So,
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Look, I'm sorry.
We both are.
Yeah, and I'm embarrassed to not be
I'm not
able
an
to.
architect, you know that, right?
Yeah, well, I knew when you looked at me, like you said, you're professional, I did think you were.
Oh, okay.
And I just feel uncomfortable, with not having an architect look at that. And,
Well, I know
They were gonna be
Andrew's
there.
gonna hate the double door.
That's why I was.
That might just solve it, though,
That's
the
what
whole
I
thing.
think, I thought it was the double dormer, but he was so impersonal about his, like, and I don't feel confident enough to say, why don't you get rid of the dormer, get rid of the side light, do 1/1 windows, and I'm good, because then they.
Andrew won't be able to. He's gone now.
Yeah, but we can ask Ken, so it's really.
Oh, yeah, no.
Ken must have had a problem, because I was counting on Ken to be here, you know, when I looked at you and said, well, what about you and your professional opinion, I saw you looking at me. I thought you were, he was like, I'm not a professional. Really thought.
I'm very unprofessional.
I thought you were, until that very
Do we have a
second.
motion to adjourn?
Yeah.
Second, all in favor?
Uh,